Hi brothers and sisters, back for another video. I had said in my notes, and then in another video, the teacher, that I was going to put a video up called The Mare, and I had recorded it in 2019, and I had forgot the reason why I hadn't put it up the first time, because I had heard in my spirit not to put it up. Well, I had forgot about that was the reason I hadn't shared it the first time, and I was laying in bed one night, and I heard the Holy Spirit said, don't put the video up. Now, I don't really know the reason why. I went in and I've watched the video. I'm not certain why I shouldn't put the video up, but the Spirit has told me not to, so I'm not. That said, I do have something I want to share. It's, for anybody who's watched my videos and knows certain topics that we've talked about, one of them was the spark, which we've linked to the ruby. And because of a, dream, a vision that I had, being told to polish this piece of stone, and then later on it was sent into my belly, and I didn't know what the stone was, and turned out it was a ruby. And so, for me that become important in my understanding. It was a path, of course, that the Lord was leading me on personally, and I said, well, I'm going to share it. And eventually the word ruby led me to spark, and that word spark does appear in the Bible, and we'll look at where. And it does absolutely appear in the Apocrypha in the Book of Wisdom, and so that's where we're going to begin. And this study led me through a lot of passages. It really did. And anybody who does studies like this, when you begin looking the words up, you'll realize where it takes you to, and then how long the study could really go on for. So we'll begin in the Apocrypha in the Book of Wisdom. Chapter 3, and we're going to read, I think 3 to 9 is the verses I've got marked here. Now, when we get looking at the word spark, it's going to take us to the word cadcod, is the word I've got down here. So, cadcod is Strong's Hebrew 3539, for anybody who's got a Strong's Hebrew concordance in front of you, or want to look it up online, or, understand what the words is. Strong's Hebrew 3539, cadcod. It's considered masculine, and yet gemstones in Lamentations 4:1, the sacred stones there is clearly identified as feminine. So the high priest's breastplate held these precious stones on them, and the stones are female, according to Lamentations 4:1, and we did a study on why and what was going on in 4:1. But Strong's Hebrew 3539, cadcod, it's a precious stone, perhaps a ruby, it suggests. From the same as cad. So that's another word that we need to look at. That's Strong's Hebrew 3537. So a precious stone, perhaps a ruby, from sparkle is your understanding. Aramaic, Strong's Hebrew 5340, sparkle, to shine, to sparkle. Maybe we don't want to get right into that just yet. The word sparkle, we'll do that in a minute. Later on in the video. But it's derived from, or it says from the same as cad, which is 3537, and that's a jar. It's feminine, a jar, a bowl, a pitcher. It holds something, water. It says a water jar carried on women's shoulder, barrel, pitcher. I'm also thinking of the bowl judgments, is what I think when I think of this bowl pitcher. From an unused root, meaning to deepen. Properly a pail, but generally of earthenware, a jar for domestic purposes, barrel, pitcher, and whatnot. So we get the idea here of sparkle, and I didn't finish. So with the ruby, cadcod, the number 3539, if we continue on, it sparkles or burnished, like, okay, it's figurative in the promise to Zion, where it says, I'll make your pinnacles, which is sun, of ruby. And then it continues on, shoot or rush down, of hawk, star, etc., of an attacking force. So we find an attacking force actually, or a battle going on. It's a heavenly battle in view. It's a very brief glimpse of it in Judges 5:20, and we did also look at that in another video, which I may pin underneath this one. So these are the passages we're going to look at to get a better understanding of what this all is entailing, this spark, this ruby, this jar, because these are all around the same word play. So Wisdom 3:4, we'll read it, And then I'll look at all the passages that I've inserted as we read through these verses. So Wisdom 3:4, for though they be punished in the sight of men, yet is their hope full of immortality. Verse 5, and having been a little chastised, we're not a lot chastised, we think we're a lot chastised, but we're very little chastised, they shall be greatly rewarded. For God proved them and found them worthy for herself. This is the female God. And she's testing her daughters of Israel, who, for though they be punished in the sight of men, yet is their hope full of immortality. They're immortal one. They're also immortal is the understanding. They are reborn of the dust of the earth. And having been a little chastised, tested, they shall be greatly rewarded. For God proved them and found them worthy for herself. That's right, for the Queen of Zion. As gold. Now this is where we get into a little bit of differing information here that's gave in the Bible versus what's given the Apocrypha. It says, as gold. Now in here in the Bible it says as silver, which leads you to the understanding water, right? But it's the purifying of the water, really. But as gold in the furnace, right? In the furnace, I will do, okay, now, see, I hate the way I take notes. So I'm going to go back here and read the whole verse in the Apocrypha. So that was verse 6. It says, as gold in the furnace has she tried them, and received them as a burnt offering. Look at that, a burnt offering. Now, the burnt offering is identified in the scriptures as the red heifer. And the red heifer is a heifer female because it's identifying the daughters of Israel. It's not identifying the sons, it's identifying the daughters. That's why it's a heifer, a red heifer. That's important because it's going to link us back to this word cadcod. Ruby, red, sparkle. In our study. So I kept going on here in verse 6, and sorry if I'm convoluting the understanding. But in verse 6, as gold, or is it silver, water. So that takes us to Psalm 12. All right, now I got my Bible. I did not pull them up online. So we're going to go to Psalm 12, verse 6. So here's my Psalm here. Psalm 12, verse 6 is where we're heading. I'm trying to find a way of study and presentation that makes the information come together better. So I had wrote it down on these cards thinking it might make it a bit better, but maybe it ain't. We'll see. So Psalms 12, verse 6. The words of the Lord are pure words. They're pure words. As silver, it says, tried in a furnace of earth, purified 7 times. Thou shalt keep them, O Lord. Thou shalt preserve them from this generation forever. Who's she talking about? She's talking about her daughters of Israel. The wicked walk on every side when the vilest of men are exalted. You see? So we get the furnace of affliction also in view in Isaiah 48, verse 9. And this one I did write down on this card. Ooh, yay, good for me. So, for the sake of my name, she says this. We'll also turn to it. Let's turn to it in the Bible, even though I wrote this down. Should we want to read a little bit more? All right. So, Isaiah 48 is where we're heading. And there we go. And this is what I wrote down. For the sake of my name. And it is the divine feminine speaking here. She says, for the sake of my name. What name is she talking about? Israel. For the sake of my name, Israel, the daughters. The heifer burned to ashes to cleanse the temple. For the sake of my name, I will delay my wrath. So, it's funny that I did this study because in my last video I said, what other recommendation can be made but that the gate must remain shut and that judgment must go forth. And yet I received this in my study. I will delay my wrath. For the sake of my praise. Who's not praised? The daughter of Israel is not praised. The women of Israel, who were your wise women, who taught the law of God on earth, they are not praised. They have not received any praise. They have been defamed and they have been debased in this world. And the Bible testifies to that as we get deeper into this study. So, for the sake of my name, Israel, I will delay my wrath. And for the sake of my praise, I will. What does it say? Restrain it. So that you will not be cut off. Isaiah 48:10. See, I have refined you. See, there we go with the furnace of affliction again. But not as silver. And yet it says here, I will try you as silver is tried in a furnace. So we're getting some conflict here. See, I have refined you, but not as silver. So though she says, I will try you as silver, she says here in Isaiah 48, she's still saying it, I have refined you, but not as silver. So what is she talking about? She's saying she's refining the word on her tongue, is what she's saying she's doing. And in doing so, it almost links you to this gold idea, the head, the gold. And these are your golden daughters, in a sense. When you get the undertones of all this information, you put it together. So she says, see, I have refined you, but not as silver. I'm refining the word on your tongue so that you will be like gold. You will be my most precious. But they're also identified as gemstones. Now, I identified the sons of God as gold as well. And it is referenced in Lamentations 4:1 when you go in and you get your understanding. But here we're getting a different understanding. So I have tested you in the furnace of affliction. Now, we already looked at the wine of astonishment. So the furnace of affliction is simply another way of saying the wine of astonishment, which we found in Isaiah 60, verse 3. And we'll read it just to roughly, just a brief reference here, so we remember it. And the Gentiles shall come to the light. Do I get the right verse? Isaiah 60, verse 3. No, sorry, I must have wrote it down wrong. Let's Google this, all right? I'll put my cards over here. Sorry about this. I'll just Google this right quick. Isaiah, wine of astonishment. What is it giving me? No, it's saying Psalm 60. There you go. See, I do that. See, and I didn't bring a pen this time. Wow, I'm really good. So you see, I do that all the time. I mix Psalm and Isaiah up all the time. I apologize for that. Okay, so let's go to Psalm. Not Isaiah. So I'll turn this back to Isaiah 48. Yeah. And we'll go to Psalm. Psalm 60, verse 3, because we're going to reference this. We did this in a video already. The wine of astonishment and who she was going to cause to drink that wine of astonishment. We recognize the word astonishment as a feminine noun. So it's going to be the women that will be staggering under the wine of astonishment at what her other half, Baal, was going to do to her in the keeping of this covenant, which was to yoke her under a violent law system and to steal her goods from her. So Psalm 60 verse 3, thou hast shown thy people hard things. Mother, you have shown your daughter hard things. Thou hast made us to drink the wine of astonishment. And what does verse 4 say? We looked at truth in the last video. Thou hast given us a banner to them that you have given a banner to them that fear thee, that it may be displayed because of the truth, not because of a religious lie. You gave the banner to represent, Mother, when you have truth on your tongue, when you have been refined in the furnace of affliction and have come to understand what is truly going on in this earth, which is a big religious lie that causes women to be yoked, and they have not discovered their sin of bowing to a religious idol of their husband as Baal, who is Lord and Master. That's called an idolatrous image. You are never to bow to your husband. You're to bow to one another out of love, yes. But it was not a law saying, well, woman better bow to man or else. You know, God says this. No, God didn't say that. Man said it. Baal said it. And that is why the earth is currently under judgment. Her wrath hasn't shown yet fully. She says, I'll hold back my wrath. For the sake of my name, I'm going to delay my wrath. For the sake of my praise for my daughters, I'm going to hold back on the wrath, and I'm waiting for you to wake up. I will restrain it so that you will not be cut off. That's right. So, for my own sake, for my very own sake, I will act. For how can I let myself be what? What is the important word here that we've been looking at, us women, us men who care about the truth? How can I let myself be what? Defamed. Defamed. That's a very important word for anybody that's studied the divine feminine, because that's exactly what these daughters are considered, defamed and debased. So if we go to Zephaniah 3, we get a better understanding of just what we are really looking at. So if we pick it up in Zephaniah 3, verse 18, I will gather them, those women, that are sorrowful for the solemn assembly, who are of thee, for whom the reproach of it was a burden. There we got the word, the burden, of the deliverance of the children. Behold, at that time I will undo all that afflict thee. I will save her that halteth. I will gather her that was driven out, and I will get them praise and what? Fame. Fame. In every land where they have been put to shame, or defamed and debased and defiled. I will get them praise in every land where they were slandered. That's right. Where they were slandered and where they were defamed for my name. For daring to stand up for Mother. For me. For the Holy One. And so, defamed is going to take us to, alright, so did I write it down? Greek 14:26, which is then going to link you to Greek 9:88, which is blasphemia. So it's to slander. And it's a feminine noun, not because it's the women slandering, but it's because they're the ones being slandered. Abusive or scurrious language. I can't tell you how much of this I had to hear off the pulpit towards women who had to remain silent as those men threw around abusive and scurrious language, building up man as God, Baal as God, and debasing his very own sister that sat next to him. Don't tell me most of us ain't heard this. If you haven't, then you're in a very unusual situation. I can tell you that. 5345. Reputation, fame. I will not yield my glory to another, she says. So, if we go to Mark 3:29, let's read this. Okay, I have it right down over here. Try to get through this. And of course, my cards are dropping. So, Mark 3, it'll be the one I draw. Okay, maybe I didn't write Mark down. I was supposed to write Mark down. Nope, there it is. Mark 3:29. But whoever blasphemes, defames, that's right, and slanders the Holy One, that's Israel, daughter Israel, will never be forgiven. They are guilty of an eternal sin. So you can say, I'm wrong. You can say women like me speaking the same truth is wrong. It's akin to blasphemy. You blaspheme, you use scurrious language, and you say that daughter Israel and the women of Israel, or the daughter of Israel who was one, is not the Holy One. Okay, well let's go to 2 Kings 19:21. We're still going to get to the idea of spark and what's going on there. This is the word, 2 Kings 19:21. This is the word that the Lord hath spoken concerning him. Who was she speaking of? Sennacherib, king of Assyria. the Assyrian. The virgin, it appears that wise women appeared to remain unmarried. That's why they were called virgin, the virgin daughters of Israel. The wise women typically remained unmarried. They were not married women. They never took husbands, and I think part of the reason was to what's the word I'm looking for? To not allow the men to have so much power over the women's thinking. So these wise women were gave in covenant to teach the laws of heaven, but not to marry men. They were there to teach the word of heaven, and that's why they're called the virgin daughters of Israel, because they went through life and they never did marry. And we get that understanding also in the book of Judges, when the little maiden comes. There's the first thing out through, I forget the name of the man. He only had one arm. I think he was left-handed. And he promised the Lord when he went up into battle, he said, if we win this battle, Lord, I'll give you the first thing that comes out through my door. And the first thing out through his door was his little maiden daughter. And he wept. He didn't want to give her up. And she says, calls her virgin friends with her, and she says, weep for me, because I will never have children. And she was going to be one of these maidens that called out in the high places of the gate for wisdom, as the voice of wisdom, to call passerbys onto the correct pathway. And that was going to be a lifelong commitment for her, and she knew it. She would never have children. And so there seems to be some indication as to why this is called virgin, the virgin. Wise women appeared to remain unmarried. That's what it looks like at this point. So we'll keep reading this. This is the word that the Lord had spoken concerning him, Sennacherib, king of Assyria. The virgin, the daughter of Zion, Israel, has despised thee and laughed thee to scorn. We're getting wisdom there. And her laughing to scorn, if you follow Proverbs 1 and takes you to Psalm 2, you know you're looking at this daughter. The daughter of Jerusalem has shaken her head at thee. Whom hast thou reproached? The same word appears in Zephaniah 3:18. And who have you blasphemed? Slandered. That's right. Who have you slandered? Who have you defamed? And against whom have you exalted your voice and lifted up your eyes on high? Against who? And she tells you who you did it against. Against the Holy One of Israel. That's who you did it against, king of Assyria. Or not Assyria, king of Assyria. The Assyrian, and many men just like him. And I also said to read verse 23, but I never wrote it down. So we're going to go to 2 Kings 19. Because all of the information is here. It's like a puzzle. It's like a riddle, and you got to put it all together. And when you do, the information is all there gave to you. So verse 20, I have 23. Yeah, so 22, we'll read it again. Whom hast thou reproached and blasphemed, and against whom hast thou exalted thy voice and lifted up thine eyes on high, even against the Holy One of Israel? And she's the one that sits between the cherubim when Hezekiah goes up and asks for his petition to be heard. It is she that he goes up to. Okay, so we'll go back here. We'll go back to verse 15. And Hezekiah prayed before the Lord and said, O Lord God of Israel, which dwellest between the cherubims. We understand that it is Ephraim, the firstborn of mother, that dwells between the cherubim by reading Psalm 80, Psalm 60, and all of the passages that has to do with the lily and lilies of the covenant. We begin to understand who's in view, and it is the daughters, the divine feminine. So, dwellest between the cherubim, thou art the God, even thou alone, of all the kingdoms of the earth, thou hast made heaven and earth. Lord, bow down thine ear and hear. Open, Lord, thine eyes and see, and hear the word of Sennacherib, which has sent him to reproach the living God. They were reproaching her, Israel, wisdom on the earth. And you blaspheme her. What does it say in Mark? But whoever blasphemes, defames, slanders the Holy One of Israel, that's the daughter of Israel, daughter Zion, that dwells between the cherubim, the glory, that's right, will never be forgiven. They are guilty of an eternal sin. So, when we go, we keep going here, to whom have you blasphemed and laughed at? And she says, this is the word that the Lord hath spoken concerning him. The virgin, the daughter of Zion, has despised thee, and laughed thee to scorn, and the daughter of Jerusalem has shaken her head. Go to Proverbs 1 and Psalm 2, you'll find out who that is. She, it's not he. Whom hast thou reproached and blasphemed, and against whom hast thou exalted thy voice, and lifted up thine eyes on high, even against the Holy One of Israel? By thy messengers thou hast reproached the Lord, and hast said, with the multitude of my chariots I am come up to the heights of the mountain. What mountain? Lebanon. To the sides of, it tells you right here, Lebanon, and will cut down the tall cedar trees. We find them cutting down the trees of Lebanon in Psalm 74. That's right. They were trying to take the house in the forest of Lebanon out where the government of God met. And they met in the congregation of the north as a congregation of women, known as the holy ones that would take the word of God out into the land, the law. That's right. And so the tall cedar trees thereof and the choice fir trees thereof, and I will enter into the lodgings of her border. That's what he threatened. And into the forest. That's right. And her Carmel. I have digged and drunk strange waters, and with the soles of my feet I have dried up the rivers of besieged places. So you see who the Holy One is. It's not a man. The Old Testament verifies that it was never a man coming to save you. It was a female. And that she was going to gather the daughters to her. And that they were left behind to put up, to drink these waters that would cause them to stagger. Water is symbolic of a false doctrine. In this case, it became an admixture like the Red Sea that has to be parted in order to birth the children out. They dripped blood into her law system. And over time, just simply cut these daughters away and took control of it. And yet Mother says, I will rebirth you out of the earth again. Okay. Now, where was we going? So they blasphemed her. They used spurious language. You go look all them words up in the New Testament. It's going to link you back to the divine feminine that got blasphemed. They blasphemed the hierarchy of heaven. They want nothing to do with her. So she says, but I will not yield my glory to another. My glory goes to my daughters. That's who it goes to. So verse 3:6, hath she tried them, and she has received them as a burnt offering. And she has. Okay, so. Now, where's my other passages here? So, we see that burnt offering going up as a sweet-smelling savor to God in heaven in Song of Songs 3:6. And it says, who is this coming up from the wilderness like a column of smoke, perfumed with myrrh and incense made from all the spices of the merchant? Okay, so we see that, don't we? Yeah, it's pretty cool. You just got to take your puzzle pieces. You got to be a collector of sentences like the Koheleth and put it all together. Because the truth is in there. We daughters, unfortunately, began to rest on our heels and listen to what the men actually thought it meant, which was all about them. And it turns out it's about the both of us. They left the divine feminine completely out of the context. Okay, so Wisdom 3:7, and in the time of their visitation. So there's two ways to look at that. Either it's the visitation of the Holy One, taking back possession of her daughters, that means her spirit coming upon us. And it also refers to the day of the Lord as a day of the wicked's visitation. So there's two ways that you can understand that. So, but in the time of their visitation, they, so this appears to be the Holy Spirit coming upon us. They shall shine. We're looking at the daughters of Israel, who are promised to be the light of the world. They were always the light of the world. They were always supposed to be. And run to and fro like sparks. There we go with the word sparks. Among the stubble. What does the spark do to the stubble? It burns it, doesn't it? They shall judge the nations and have dominion over the people and their sovereign Lord. This is how this should be translated. Daughter Zion's number is 136, or daughter Israel's number, shall reign forever. And so we get the sparks here as the daughters of Israel. And when we get running it out, spark, what it means, and we'll finish reading this. They shall reign forever. They that put their trust in her shall understand the truth. And such as be faithful in love, you will understand this truth if you simply understand love, shall abide with her, for grace and mercy is to her saints, and she has care for her elect, her chosen ones, her preserved ones. So let's take a look at the synonyms for spark. These are the synonyms for spark. Sparkle, flicker, gleam, glimmer, glint, life, warmth, spirit, ignite. Look at that. Take fire. Here's one. Catching fire. Oh, I remember a movie named that, The Mockingjay, Catching Fire. Start. Start up. Animal. Reanimate. In spirit. Inspire. Wet. I will wet my sword, she says in Ezekiel 21. Motivate. Stimulate. Enkindle. Activate. Push. Advance. Promote. Electrify. Galvanize. Push. Push? For spark? Yeah, as in the horns of Ephraim. I will push the people from the four corners of the world together. Rally, enliven. So you see, it's the spark of truth, right, that's coming back into existence. And you kind of get the understanding that, you know, it's they're ruby jars, they're ruby red jars, and they're holding the water in these vessels. Adam comes from red. So it's alluding to these daughters. So we get that burnt offering. She says, I will receive them as a burnt offering. Right here. She says, as I will, and found them worthy for herself. As gold in the furnace has she tried them, and she has received them as a burnt offering. So when we go to Psalm 68, we find the dove there laying amongst, really, it's an ash heap. It says sheepfold, but you go look the word up, it's Ariel. Amongst a sheepfold, or amongst an ash heap is the correct translation. And she's been burned to ashes. And so you get the understanding of the red heifer burned to ashes, used to cleanse the temple, the new body, and they are reborn out of the dust of the earth. And she says, I have tried you, and having been a little chastised, they shall be greatly rewarded. For God has proved them. This is a trying and a testing for us to see if we're going to come up with the word of God, the truth on our tongue at the end, after we've been tried, after we've been chastised, after we've been forced to drink the wine of astonishment, after we've been tested in a furnace of affliction. Are we going to be able to come up with the truth of God and understand what that true and pure love is? And it's not a man. It's not all about a man. They want to make it all about a man. That's hate. That's why the world is in the current state it's in. It's a mess. And so she has tried them. And so you get the dove burned to ashes. You get the heifer burned to ashes. Now, yeah. So if we go to, where else did I want to go? Judges 5:20, we see from the heavens the stars fought from their courses, their pathways, their circuits or their orbits. People want to say, no, there's no such thing as planets. The Bible speaks of this heavenly battle, and does so speak as the planets fought against one another. So if you look the word star up, it's going to tell you it means planets. It's going to tell you it means a wandering star or a wandering planet that's out there causing trouble. Sense of blazing, a star as round and shining. But it says from the heavens the stars fought from their pathways. They fought against Sisera. So there's something there to be studied. Sisera is who they fought against. Okay, so we get the abusive and scurrilous language. We get clear understanding of the women that were defamed and debased. It says, let her eyes look upon Zion, let her be defiled. And then it says, but you know not the thoughts of the Lord, and you don't. You think the thoughts of the Lord is akin to the thoughts of a man, leaving out the divine feminine altogether. God says, nope. I'll make your pinnacles of ruby, your son of ruby. And so we get that rushing down force of a hawk, a star, also of an attacking force, which takes you to that heavenly battle. Except this time it spins around. So I wonder if the fire shooting down from the heaven is not her reasserting her power once again, and standing for her daughters of truth. So Strong's Greek 4107, planets, a wanderer, a wandering star. Planet, figuratively a false teacher also, operating without moral compass and exploiting others, aimless people, prompting them to stray from God's circle. That's curious. Orbit, I would say, of safety, which is sound doctrine. A sound governance of laws that keeps you protected, keeps us all protected. So a rover planet is what we get there. So if we go to, well, it's in my head in here. Oops, there goes a card. James 3:5. This is what it says. Likewise, the tongue, we know the tongue is representative of your sword, also of your words that you shoot off of that. They can pierce, they can be very piercing, or they can be loving, they can be kind. Which is, you know, if you're truly a child of God, there should not be piercing words that should be coming off the end of your tongue. It should be done with love towards one another. So, likewise, the tongue is a small part of the body, but it makes a great boast. Consider what a great force is set on fire by a small spark. Look at that. By a small spark. So Strong's Greek 329, to kindle afresh. I stir up the fire. I fan the flame. The remains of a fire or embers. Look at that. I did a short little video, about 2.5 minutes on the embers. And I never thought it would come full circle, not in a million years, to understand the full meaning of embers. But it truly is our mother. We are reborn out of the fire that burned the red heifer to ashes, and yet the embers remained within us. So in each one of us daughters, those embers of truth remained there. And she says, I caused a deep torpor to come upon you, and you went to sleep in the spirit, so you did not remember. So the daughters of Israel are the embers, resuscitated, inflamed, one's mind, strength, zeal. And to gain strength is all the meaning of this word, to kindle afresh. And so that's what we get, these jars holding water, akin to precious ruby stones. And this word is the same as the jar, which is feminine, holding the water. And they're rekindling the embers, and it's going to come into existence. And why it comes in as a spark in the beginning, it turns into a mighty fire. And it's either going to burn you or it's going to purify you with the truth. One or the other. The wicked force, the treason, the force, the wicked treason, the force are going to be burned, set on fire. And the righteous is going to be purified in the words. God says, my law is not a heavy law to have to wear. If you go by the 10 Commandments, you are to have no other God before you. That means you listen to the government of God, which is found in the daughter of Israel. And when you turn away from her, you turn away from the living God. But those 10 Commandments are there for us to uphold, and it's quite easy. If you don't uphold them, you get cut away. If you commit murder, you get cut away. If you steal from another, you get cut away. And it goes on and on. Those commandments were there in the beginning. Deuteronomy 4, she says, that was my covenant with you, children of Israel. You were to uphold my 10 Commandments. And when you began to write violence into the law system known as the Torah, that they're trying to preach really hard at the world because indirectly it leads to our eventual yoking heavily under them again. They're trying to put in that temple of a man that exalts a harlot. That's right. Because when a man goes inside of that temple, it's a harlot exalting it. That's what it is. And they're trying to put this system back in play and say, God is he again. No, she's mad. You want to look out this time around. You want to look out. You better get the truth and you better understand it. Because we are told this, and having been a little chastised, they shall be greatly rewarded. For God proved them and found them worthy for, it says himself, for herself. She's testing her daughters. Are you going to bow as a harlot to a male idol, Baal, your husband as Lord and God? Are you going to wake up and remember me and my laws, my words of truth? Are you going to remember your mother, in whose image you are reflecting in the Godhead? I don't reflect a man. I reflect my mother. So as gold in the furnace has she tried them and received them as burnt offerings. Your sacrifice has been sweet-smelling to her. She is paying great attention to you. And in the time of their visitation they shall shine and run to and fro like sparks among the stubble. They shall judge the nations and have dominion. We're told Micah 4:8, is it? But it's in chapter 4 that the dominion will be restored back to the daughter of Israel. That's right. It's not a man. Nope, it's not. They shall judge the nations and have dominion over the people, and their Lord, sovereign Lord, that is the daughter of Israel, shall reign forever. They that put their trust in her shall understand the truth, and such as be faithful in love shall abide with her. For grace and mercy is to her saints, and she does have care for her elected ones. But the ungodly shall be punished according to their own imaginations. I wonder if part of that isn't that a man's going to deliver you. Isn't part of their wicked imaginations. Wait for your king. He's coming to get you. A man don't deliver children. Why now do I see every man standing around with his hands on his hips as a woman in travail, and every face turned pale? Every face turned pale means they're in great distress and they're being destroyed because of that distress. Because of their imaginations in Jeremiah 23, where they began to prophesy through a man being your Lord and God, and that he could deliver the children when a female couldn't. What? But the ungodly shall be punished according to their own imaginations. Again, Jeremiah 23. Which have neglected the righteous and forsaken the Lord. Daughter Israel, 136. For whosoever despises wisdom and nurture, that's your mother, he is miserable. She is miserable. And their hope is in vain. Their labors are unfruitful, and their works are unprofitable. Their wives, who's the wife of the married man? Baal. Baal, yeah, 1166, to be ruled over. She willingly bows to an idol and even gets quite sanctimonious about it. A lot of these women did. I was one of them for a while. Yeah. But they are foolish. That's what you are. And their children are wicked. You see, that's why what's going on in the world today is what's going on. You are not raising them up on mother's milk. You are not raising them up according to the water of God. You are raising them up on an admixture called wine on the table. And there's a reason why the Red Sea is called the Red Sea. It's representing an admixture of doctrine. And before the children can be birthed out through that admixture must be parted. That's what it's telling you. And in the end day, it is the spirit upon Moses that is actually the spirit in the end of days, which is daughter Israel, that parts the waters. That's what we understand. And that was the only reason why Moses could part the waters, because he had her power upon him. And so she does it in the end as a witness. These are the witnesses. And we find their bodies wearing sackcloth. Well, these bodies are sackcloth. It's not a literal sackcloth. This body is a dying body. It's akin to sackcloth. It's akin to a wickety basket that's got holes in it. There's no eternal life to it. It's weaved together, very flimsy. And so you get the understanding of they'll testify in sackcloth. It just means these bodies, these very earthly and sinful bodies, they'll give testimony. And where does their bodies lie? In the streets of Sodom and Egypt. Why? Because this links us all back to Egypt and the daughters discovering what it was that led us into our own captivity, which was bound to Baal as Lord and Master, your husband as Lord and God. In that image in the New Testament that they say is God, God, God. So their wives are foolish and their children are wicked. Right? Therefore their offspring is cursed, because you have not taught them the truth, you have taught them the lie of Baal. Wherefore blessed is the barren that is undefiled. So this is why it kind of links me back to the idea that the women of wisdom were not married women. They lived a life of solitude, or at least with each other, in lifting up the laws of God and really governing the nations. When something come in that had to be judged, it was upon them to make righteous judgments, which isn't always easy to do. We know it's not easy to do. It's very difficult to do. And part of that was to stop the influence of Baal, husband over these women, so that God's truth could remain intact, I think, and in truth. So this is why it's this warning, their offspring is cursed, wherefore blessed is the barren that is undefiled, which has not known the sinful bed, she shall have fruit in the visitation of souls. So I wonder if it's possible that you can be reborn as one of these virgin daughters, even after this sinful life, but raising up righteous children unto the Lord, teaching your sons and your daughters who God truly is. And that's not the image of Baal. You do not teach a man as God, king, he's going to deliver you. That's the wicked imaginations, the foolish imaginations of their heart, that God, Father, gave life to all things. He didn't. He didn't. And she's mad about it. Which is why she turned her back on her daughters, because her daughters began to spew this lie upon their tongue as well. Again, Jeremiah 23 tells us this. So back to Isaiah 48, just briefly here, because I found this a fascinating chapter. So Isaiah 48, I had it here a minute ago, but lost it. I hope I didn't forget anything. It's easy for me to forget things. I thought I had everything wrote down nice and neat and planned. No, it's not, never. So where was I? Isaiah 48 verse 9 is where we began. So for my name's sake will I defer mine anger, my wrath, right? And for my praise will I refrain for thee, Israel, my daughters of Israel, that I cut thee not off, right? Because it says the snare that they laid for you daughters, my daughters, to fall into, a lying theology on your tongue, and they have prophesied and not discovered the sin of the daughters, which is to bow to Baal as Lord and Master. You bow out of love to one another and not for any other reason. So she says, so that you're not cut off, I'm going to restrain myself. Behold, I have refined thee, but not with silver, with my truth. That's what she's washing us with, her truth. And she says that. She says, I will wash the stain of blood that you daughters allowed into the law system. that permitted those men to commit all of the wicked crimes that they've committed and to continue to yoke you and your children and to permit it, when you have great power, you don't realize the power that you have. The men want to put it all in the arm and say, well, that's power. That's not power. Power comes from the Spirit. That's where it comes from, to be able to prevail over the enemy. It doesn't come from an arm. Not your physical arm. It doesn't. But they want you to believe, oh, well, all these horrible things will do to you. Really? Well, guess what God's going to do to you? You better go in and read what God's going to do to you. So, I have chosen thee in the furnace of affliction for mine own sake, even for my own sake will I do it. For how should my name, daughter Israel is my name, be polluted? I will not give my glory unto another. I'm not giving my glory to Baal. I'm not. And we get this understanding, Ezekiel 21, that she's not ruling through a harlot spirit. I refuse to rule through a harlot spirit, she says. No way am I bowing to a Baal as Lord and God because he didn't fill the heavens. He didn't create them. She says, I did. Yeah. Hearken unto me, O Israel, my called. I am she, not he. More lies. I am the first and I am also the last. So these daughters of Israel were the first, and they are reborn out of the dust of the earth as the first fruits, the chief of the kingdoms. That's what it says. I am the first and I am the last, the daughters of Israel. And in particular, the daughter, which she promises, she says, don't worry. I chose you in the beginning. I'm going to choose you in the end. And so there we have a deeper understanding of Ruby. And there's one final thing that was so important here. Yeah, I almost forgot it. I'm glad I babbled like I did. And that is, okay, I dropped a card, so it's probably on the one I dropped. Okay, we'll just keep looking here to see. Right here. Okay. So it's back on my card of CAD called that word, Strong's Hebrew 3539. So, to sparkle, which, it says to sparkle in brackets next to perhaps a precious stone, a ruby, from the same as CAD jar, and from sparkle. So, when I looked sparkle up, Strong's Hebrew 5340, guess where that took me to? Well, it means to shine or to sparkle, and it's got one occurrence in the Bible. Guess where it is? Ezekiel 1:7. Their legs were straight. I almost think it should be their pathway was straight. But we'll go with legs. Their legs were straight. Their feet were like those of a what? It says a calf. Who? Heifer. Red. Right? Their legs were straight. Their feet were like those of a heifer and gleamed. Sparkle! Or sparkled like burnished bronze, which has the color of what to it? Red. The red heifer burned to ashes. So sparkle has the idea here, it's going to link you right back to the ruby red. That's right. And they are the embers that's going to set the world on fire with the truth. And the world's either going to burn or it's going to be cleansed. And we understand that that is your understanding of it when you go to Peter, which I ain't got this right down. This just come to me. Where he says, and the elements will burn with fervent heat. Go look the word elements there. The elements that are going to burn with fervent heat is the false foundation right now that we're founded upon, that Baal is your Lord and God. That is the element that is going to burn with fervent heat. And the fervent heat is akin to the spark of ruby. Embers that's going to set the world on fire with the truth and burn the false principles, the false elements that this world has been founded upon, right? So you get, it's actually leading you back to the idea that this is the red heifer standing in Ezekiel 1:7, which is to do with the glory. That's right, the glory of God. This is the red heifer. That's why you get the understanding of sparkle. That's why you get the understanding of bronze. You're getting the understanding of a rust color, like a red heifer. So there we go. I think I've gone through everything I needed to go through. It's amazing because, you know, I had continued to wonder, you know, about the spark and about how I had had that vision, you know, with the ruby, and then to get digging deeper into the word and to follow out where it would lead me. Strong's Greek 329 was amazing. To kindle afresh. I stir up the fire. I fan the flame. I fan the ember, is what I'm fanning, of truth. That remained left over from when the first Israel was burned to ashes. That's right. And yet God says, I hear a familiar spirit as of one who is speaking like my truth upon her tongue. And many of us very soon. So it's the remains of a fire, embers. It's the daughters of Israel are the embers. And they're going to resuscitate that fire of truth, and it's going to burn the elements, the lie, with fervent heat. That's your understanding. And she says, I'm going to restrain my wrath, because I promised I would. These are my daughters. I'm proving them. Right here. We'll read it again one last time. Wisdom chapter 3 in the Apocrypha. Verse 4, for they be punished in the sight of men, yet is their hope full of immortality. Verse 5, and having been a little chastised, they shall be greatly rewarded. They are the first fruits of the kingdom. For God proved them and found them worthy for herself. In the end, they're holding her truth on their tongue. As gold in the furnace has she tried them and received them as burnt offerings. Or I would almost say precious gemstones. Because that's what they're likened to in different passages of the Bible, like Lamentations 4:1. The sacred ones, the holy ones, the sacred gems, is what they're called, which is the covering on the high priest's breastplate, which protected him. And in the time of their visitation, they shall shine and run to and fro like sparks among the stubble. They're going to burn what don't belong here. They shall judge the nations and have dominion over the people, and their Lord shall reign forever. They that put their trust in her shall understand the truth, and such as be faithful in true love, real love, shall abide with her. For grace and mercy is to her saints, and she has care for her elect. So, there you go. You know, the only way you're going to come to the understanding of the deeper truth is to really understand what love looks like. And it's not a man. Male, male, male. That led to what this world is under right now, which is under bondage of a man-made law system. But she permitted it to test us, to try us, to see if on the other end that we'd still be holding her covenant upon our tongue. And so that's where I'm at in my studies, and I thought I'd share it with you. So hopefully I'll get this posted pretty soon. Again, sorry about the mare. I was instructed again that it was not a video that I should post, and so I'm not going to. And so I pray the Lord blesses you with an abundance of truth. I thank you all for watching my videos and trying to understand the theology. It's not always easy, but certainly it's made a lot easier when we put our trust in the Holy One and not blaspheme her holy name. That's a sin that we're going to be judged for if you blaspheme her holy name, and we've proven it is she. You do not get away with blaspheming her or defaming her. And God promises her daughters of Israel, I'll get you fame and glory in every land where they have put you to shame with a lie. And thank you for waking up. Thank you. She says, I love my daughters, and I will not give my glory to another. I won't. To a harlot. It goes to my precious ones, that I have reserved for myself. So again, I pray the Lord bless you with an abundance of truth. Thanks for watching. Feel free to share the video. Feel free to share the information that I write under the video. The only way for the truth to get out is to really share it. And to really understand it for ourselves, so that when somebody does have a question, that we do have an answer on our tongues. So again, I pray the Lord blesses you. Thanks for watching, and I hope y'all have a really nice day.